years ago, we had the opportunity to create a new initiative that we called Kansans Tell Their Stories. And what we wanted it to do was provide opportunities for organizations and communities to help define what it is that made them unique. What was their story? So we created the short film initiative because what we wanted to do was create a visual snapshot, a visual story in some ways, of this unique Kansas story or stories, and then allow plenty of time for community organizations and community members to come together and talk about it. And we've been really pleased with the response. We have funded short films that looked at the story of Clyde Cessna and his roots in Kingman County, Kansas. We've looked at the Strugglers Hill neighborhood in Kansas City, Kansas. The Florence Historical Society did a project called Florence, Kansas that reflected on the history and story of their community. What our goal is to help promote these films, to offer them for discussions right back into their own communities, but also find ways that we can get more Kansans interested in these stories and collectively coming together to, again, talk about what does it mean for us to be Kansans in the 21st century.
What's great about Strugglers Hill is the fact that it's unknown and it's so prominent. The story kind of started by my wife meeting Mr. Owens, and she introduced me to him, and then I went over his house one day and he had put out all of this material, and I was like, there's a story here. There's just an incredible story that people haven't heard of. He told me Alex Haley was from there. He told me some senators were from there, some judges were from there. There are all these musicians that had come from the same area. There has to be some way that we can tell this story.
The story of Strugglers Hill is not necessarily unique. You'll find these communities dotted all across Kansas. But the thing that makes Strugglers Hill unique is the people that came out of it, the individuals and their accomplishments and what they did. The school system was also separated in Strugglers Hill, and they got a very unique education in that they were taught by Black teachers. So everyone who went through that school system had a different experience than those across Kansas. And those produced leaders and accomplished people.
Strugglers Hill had so many prominent individuals that lived in this area. And I might add, this is not the only area that you had a lot of prominent African Americans, but this was kind of a unique area. You had attorneys, you had people like Bishop Gregg who occupied the house that I live in, who was honored at Westminster Abbey, was given an award that was signed by President Truman, and people who did everything. I think the house Roots up on the corner, which was in Everett. This is where Alex Haley came to hear the story. He came here. We have pictures. We used to visit with him. And Roots, when he wrote that, really started America to really look at its heritage. And it all started right in this area.
You had Riggins Cleaners, you had Riggins Record Shop, you had Jim's Market for food, you had Claiborne's
There was a restaurant down there by the name of Claiborne's.
But there's so few now. We used to go to Hezekiah's to get.
I think it's absolutely essential for writers, filmmakers, directors, whoever, to tell those stories about community, because what is happening in these communities as people get older and the stories aren't told, we're losing history. And so from an archivist standpoint, and even from a librarian standpoint, it's just gold in the fact that 50 years from now, someone could pull up a recording media and see Strugglers Hill and what those people lived like and what those people went through. And it just connects us across time, across generations, across cultures. The Kansas Humanities Council, Julie Mulvihill, Ruth Medell, Tracy Quillen, everybody over there was wonderful and instrumental in actually getting this project made, because without them, the project would not have been made.
We're all searching for community. How do we make those local connections? How do you engage your neighbor across the fence? And when you can tell those local stories, those are building blocks to a broader experience. History is really about learning how to walk in someone else's shoes. And when history is done well, you have the experience of what happened a long time ago in your present day, and you can relate it to your present day experiences.
What the Kansas Humanities Council has found when they premiere these short films in their own communities is that friends and neighbors, sometimes strangers, come together and they have this common experience that they can talk about. And it really draws out opinions and perspectives, sometimes in agreement, sometimes in opposition, about where they want to go from here. And so sometimes these short films can provide just that safety net for people to come together and talk about topics of importance, but that can be difficult to just get people to engage with.